Freedom schools are literacy-rich learning opportunities both after school and in the summer for children who are most at risk of school failure. Through Freedom Schools, we employ college student interns who are the combination of the teacher and the role model and the camp counselor and the mentor, who inspire children, who guide them through the 6 weeks of a literacy-based curriculum built on the theme of I can make a difference. Now, to inspire all of us to help Charlotte become the national model for Freedom Schools, I invite Marion Wright Edelman to inspire us with that. Thank you.
I know Dr. King would be having a ball if he were here today. He can't think of a better way to celebrate his birthday. When he died, he was calling for a cross-racial poor people's campaign, and at that time we had 11 million poor children. And today we have 15.5 million poor children, despite the significant progress for a significant minority. 44 million Americans generally, and about a third of those children are living in extreme poverty. So your work is so important as we try to renew the call to end child poverty in the richest nation on earth. We're 3 times richer than we were when Dr. King called for that last campaign. And so here we are today saying let's get on with the job that he led us to try to begin to focus on. And he would be so pleased about the Freedom School Partnership here in Charlotte, and you really are the model we'd like to see come together in every community. Freedom Schools work. And as Mary Nell pointed out, and we'd like to clone her and send her all over the country. Absolutely wonderful. Freedom Schools came out of a meeting 20 years ago in Bellagio, Italy, that John Hope Franklin, a very distinguished North Carolinian, and Dr. Dorothy Irene Hyde co-convened with CDF to discuss the crisis facing black children. And we decided that we faced one of the worst crises in the black family and with black families and children since slavery. But we also decided we were going to announce and do something about it. We were going to wring our hands. We were going to use the resources of our community to help not just black children, all children. We debated a lot about whether this was a black community crusade for black children or a black community crusade for children. And we decided it was a black community crusade for children, but that we also had to take care of our own, rebuild the bridges between the black middle class and poor, train a new generation of servant leaders, build new community building models, and make our institutions traditions of self-help and strong families and strong churches and communities, because it does take a community to raise a child, make them function again. And one of the things that we did was to try to resuscitate the Freedom School concept of the Summer Project of Mississippi in 1964, put a real integrated reading curriculum beneath them, to train college students who have the energy and the caring, and we need them as role models. They don't need all the celebrities on TV. They need somebody who grew up in their communities and who are making it, went through some of the same problems, and are coming back to give. And I am so proud that 90,000 children have gone through Freedom Schools from that meeting 20 years ago, starting in South Carolina 16 years ago. And over 9,000, mostly black and some Latino college students and some white college students, have been trained as Freedom School teachers and interns. And I was so pleased when Artie Duncan was looking for some black male teachers about 6 months ago he wanted to meet with, that we made out a little call. A bunch of them came down in New Orleans, and they're becoming teachers and principals. And so I think Freedom Schools are going to be a real feeder system for trying to begin to create stronger minority presence in our public schools. 2% of black males fewer in our schools, and the only role models these children see are often the janitors and the cooks, and we want to change that. And I think that we can really begin to reclaim our children, to give them a sense of what they can do. We met again in December, recognizing that we had made very significant progress, but that the problems in some ways had gotten worse, that for a significant minority we have made real progress. We're so proud. We've got a black president in the White House, and we've got black elected officials like your wonderful mayor. Thank you for being here today. In elected office, we've got minority members dotting the corridors of power in the private sector. But the big group of us are going backwards, and the entire civil rights movement was premised on the assumption we were going to work to make a better life for our children. And many of our children, white, black, and brown, are not going to do as well as their parents, and for many black children, the backward slide is overt. And we recommissioned a poll 16 years ago. We asked Peter Hart to sort of tell us what was on the mind of the black community to make sure that we were doing the right thing. We thought we knew. We thought it was about education. We thought it was about early childhood education. Well, it turns out that violence and drugs were the top things, and many parents were concerned that their children were not going to live to adulthood, and many children were concerned that they would not live to adulthood. It was a sense of nihilism, so we stopped and we created a child and gun violence grassroots network and issue annual reports. But that violence is still a major concern in our poll that was released last week. I hope you'll go to the website and look at the findings of that poll. 7 out of 10 black adults feel that their children, our children today, are in very bad or tough shape. That this is a very bad time for them. And I hope you'll look at that. And many black children are deeply concerned about violence and growing to adulthood still, and we've got to deal with the violence in our society. It's just not safe for many children, and the drugs. 2 big things jump to the head of their concerns, both young children, leaders, as well as adults. Unemployment, unemployment, unemployment. They don't see an economic future, and I tell you, one of the things that is clear is that 43% of our black males, 30 and under, who don't have a good education are unemployed today, and if you don't have a strong high school or more education coming in the future in this economy, you don't have a job. There is no future unless you get an education. And the scariest figure of all, the black community is very concerned about education, is that over 80% of black and Latino children cannot read or compute at grade level in 4th, 8th, or 12th grade. If you can't read in this globalizing economy, you can't work, you don't have a future, and that is feeding what we at the Children's Defense Fund call the cradle to prison pipeline. 1 in 3 black boys will go to prison in his or her lifetime, and as Michelle Alexander's book points out, the new Jim Crow mass incarceration in an age of colorblindness, there are more blacks now under the purview of the criminal justice system on probation and parole and prison than there were blacks in slavery 10 years before the Civil War. We have got to wake up, because this cradle to prison pipeline is feeding a new American apartheid, the absence of education, which is why freedom schools are so important. We need them everywhere. We need to reweave community. We need everybody to wake up. And this is not a doom or gloom set of things. We're just saying, get your eyes open and let's build that intergenerational movement to make sure that all of our children have hope. The day after Dr. King was assassinated, I went out into let me just say, 40% of our children also dropping out of school. And again, school dropouts have no economic future, and they're going to be relegated to the underground economy. That's not worthy of us. We have got to stop this backward slide, and we know we're resegregating all over the country. I'm just absolutely distraught about what's happening in Wake County, North Carolina, and Wilmington County. We've got to stop this resegregation of schools and the shunting aside of children who are poor. And Wake County was the only place we could point to where the whole school system was lifting the floor for children. And to see that go backwards is just a disgrace. We've got to organize, we've got to run for the school boards ourselves, because that's the most important elected office around. But we've also got to make sure that we have freedom schools everywhere telling children you can learn. We are here to help you learn, to make learning exciting, make reading exciting, and so what you're doing is important. And we've set a goal as a result of this poll, and out of what we know, of doubling at least the number of freedom schools in this country over the next few years, extending more of them after school, extending them more downwards to preschool. We're just finished testing a preschool pilot program in Marlboro County, South Carolina. We want them everywhere. We've also made another goal of training at least 5,000 new young minority leaders, at least half black males, because we need to give back what Dr. King and others gave us. They trained us how to be good leaders and good servants, and we owe that to the next generation. We're going to get a lot of terrific leaders out of the 90,000 children who've gone through freedom schools and out of the college students who've been teaching in freedom schools. And so the work you're doing is the most important work you can do. We know every child can learn. They will live up or down to our expectations. And in freedom schools, we have high expectations, but we're going to give them the support and the role models to do what we know they can do and make up for that summer learning loss, and hopefully one day change the culture of our schools, because we believe in children, and we hope that that's going to change and drip over into all those folk who we know have to do their job. So I'm just very grateful for what you're doing, what you're going to do. I'm on my way to Marlboro County, and Bruce Taylor, who did the evaluation here from the University of North Carolina, did one in Marlboro County. And I know what can happen when they're caring adults who come together to make children feel comfortable, because when I was growing up in Bennettsville, South Carolina, the outside world told me as a black girl I wasn't worth anything. But I didn't believe it because my parents said it wasn't so, my preacher said it wasn't so, my teacher said it wasn't so I knew it wasn't so. And there was never a time when I knew I wasn't going to change the world, because the adults around me were working to change that world, to make it better for me and for my peers, and they sent a clear message that we were supposed to give back. A minister told me about a couple of months ago something that really disturbed me so deeply, because I had gone out and the day after Dr. King was assassinated, into the schools in Washington and the areas where they were rioting, and tell children not to riot and loot. And I went to one little boy in one of the schools, looked me square in the eye and said, "Lady, what future? I ain't got nothing to lose. I ain't got no future." And I've spent 40 years trying to prove that boy's future truth wrong. And our very militarily powerful and very materially rich and very spiritually poor nation, no other industrialized country lets its children be the poorest Americans, and we need to stop standing for it. We do not have a money problem in this country. I don't care about the downturn in the economy. We have a values and priorities problem. We do not have a child problem. We have an adult problem, and the adults need to get together and organize and say no more tax cuts for the rich. We're going to make sure that every child has a chance to grow up, and we're going to stop state spending on average 3 times more per prisoner than for public school pupil. That's the dumbest investment policy you could possibly have, and we need to now say put it into freedom schools, put it into early education, put it into education, because that's going to be the key to our competitiveness as a nation. But when I learned a couple of months ago that 3 young black boys had said to a local black minister, who asked them what they wanted to be, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, the first boy said, "I want to grow up and work at McDonald's." The second boy said, "I'm going to be Spider-Man." And when he was pushed for a real live occupation, he could not think of one. And many of our children never seen anybody work, and they've had no work experience. We have got to stop that. We've got to invest in summer jobs and in younger children being helped in jobs fulfilled by older children. But the third boy said that he didn't have to worry about growing up, and he drew something on the lines that he was going to be dead before he grew up. That's not Dr. King's dream. That's not our dream, and it's unworthy of this generation of adults to let that happen in our watch. And in Charlotte, you've made a commitment you're not going to let that happen in your watch, and you're going to have freedom schools, and I really hope you will be the model for the nation, because our children can learn, they deserve to learn, and they deserve to have a better life than we have. So let me just end with a prayer of thanks. Say, God, we have pushed so many of our children into the tumultuous sea of life in small and leaky boats, without survival gear and compass. Forgive us and help them to forgive us. Help us now to give all of our children the anchors of faith and love, the rudder of hope, the sails of health and education, and the paddles of family and community, to keep them safe and strong when life's sea gets rough. Thank you, Charlotte Mecklenburg, for doing that.